So one of the things before we get started, I want to mention to you, so most of you know that I'm one of the managing partners for a multifamily, a syndication group called PassiveInvesting.com. You can kind of see that on my shirt here. But I just wanted to encourage you that if you've, considered investing passively in other projects and, you want to maybe possibly join us on our next project, we'd love to have you. I would love to jump on a phone call with you to discuss your investment goals to see if investing with our group might be a good fit for you. And one of the things we also have in our group is quite a few other syndicators that, because they can't invest via their self-directed IRA or 401ks or other qualified retirement accounts in their own deals, they decide to invest with us. And so we have quite a few people that have done that. And so if you're in that position and you want to invest with us, I would encourage you to do that. So in the chat box right now, and for those of you who are watching the recording, I'm going to type in here the link to our website. It is very simple, just PassiveInvesting.com. And if you want to head over there now and fill out the form, would love to be able to, like I said, jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals to see if our group would be a good fit for you. So that's all I'll say about that, but I want to dive into what we're going to cover today. So today we are going to be going over picking a multifamily market for investing. And I'm going to go over some market drivers. I'm going to go over, the thing that you want to always be looking for when you're deciding what type of asset that you're wanting to, or my type of market you want to invest in. So it's kind of something that a lot of people sometimes forget, which is very important. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That'll probably be one of the last things that I cover. And then I'll also be going over some of the multifamily market reports that you should be a part of and be subscribed to. And then we're going to talk about how to find all these different statistics for these various market drivers that we're talking about. And then we're also going to talk about a couple other things. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So first thing today, I'm going to see if I can get this PowerPoint. I have not actually used this PowerPoint yet or before. I just got this over from our designer and completed it. So let me go straight to the next slide here. Market drivers. So first thing is we want to look for incoming population and population growth. So we want to be looking for areas that are obviously growing, right? So if you find an area that is not growing, it's probably not the best market to be investing in. Now, you might look at that market and say, well, it's a good buy and hold for long-term strategy, and maybe that's the type of investor that you are, and so there might be some other metrics. And again, when I go over these market drivers, these are not market drivers that every single one of the markets has to hit, but these are things that you want to be considering and thinking about, because choosing a market is an art. It's not just a science, right? You have to look at the data and analyze it, but you also have to make a decision as to what of these types of market drivers are the most important for you. But you want to use different tools. So one of the things that we look for are various reports. And one of the ones that I like to look at quite a bit is the U-Haul market reports. And so what U-Haul actually does is they actually compile the data of the incoming and outgoing U-Hauls that are either coming into or out of a particular state. And so like right now, the top three that are on the current report for U-Haul is number one is going to be Texas, Texas. Number two is Florida. And then number three is actually South Carolina, which is one of the reasons why we invest pretty heavily in the Carolinas, is because there has been quite a influx of incoming population into the Carolinas. And we like to be able to be in that top three list, if you will, next to Florida and Texas. There's other reports that you can look at, like, the U.S. Census website is a very good resource. You can go to census.gov and look at some of the market, some of the statistics there. Those are getting ready to be updated because the 2020 census is about to be launched coming up soon, next year, I believe. And then you can also use software like CoStar. So yesterday we actually had the CoStar group actually in my office and giving us a demo of the CoStar database, and it is amazing the amount of information they have compiled into their database that you can drive down into the market. And they have market demographics, they have the market rent premiums and rent comps, and also the rent projections in a particular market or sub-market. And that's another important thing to understand too, is that when we're doing market research, we do not want to be looking in just the large market that is in a particular area. We want to be looking for the entire we want to be looking for the actual microeconomics of a market. So we want to be looking into that actual submarket where this particular asset is located. And so you can look at other things like Axiomatrix, Yardi Matrix, RealPage, and then also city data. City data is probably one of the number one resources that you can use because it doesn't cost anything. It compiles data from the census website and other areas, and you just go to citydata.com, and that also allows you to be able to find the crime statistics and stuff as well. Because that's another thing you want to look at is look for the crime statistics in that market to see where it actually is. And so you can use city data, you can use neighborhood scout and crime, Trulia, Statista, and also local property management companies are a great resource for crime statistics, and even just calling the local police station, asking about the particular asset or market that you're looking to invest in. The next thing that you want to look for is you want to be looking for median household income growth. So when you're looking into these various reports like city data, you can drive down to the particular area, the submarket by the zip code of where the median household income growth. So we want to have incoming and growing population. We want to have growing or rising median household income growth. And then number three, what we want to look for is we want to see development happening. We also want to see not just development, but we want to see blue chip companies in the market, because those blue chip companies, and for those of you who might not know what a blue chip company is it is a large corporation that comes into a market and sets up a headquarters there and creates stability in that market. If you're in a market that does not have a lot of blue chip companies, then it's not going to be as stable for you when you're trying to project that particular asset. But the biggest thing that these blue chip companies provide is they provide job stability. And so the next thing that we're going to be looking for is job growth. And one of the things that you can do to look for job growth is to go to the local county or municipality's economic development committee website. There are usually specific websites that are set up specific to people who are coming in and wanting to learn about how to start a business or move their corporation or set up a secondary headquarters or wherever they want to do in that particular location or in that city. And that would be the economic development website. And it's very easy to find. So if you're looking for somewhere like Greenville, South Carolina, because we have 3 assets there in Greenville, South Carolina ourselves, and looking to acquire more there, but we are constantly looking at the Greenville County and the Greenville City Economic Development website. So you can type in Greenville, South Carolina Economic Development, and it'll pull up those resources for you. And you can do that with any city around the country. The next thing we're looking for is increasing home values. So you want to see that the values of these homes are rising and not stagnant, because again, it just gives you that extra confirmation of that particular market and allowing it to grow. Now, one of the other market drivers that I did not mention here, which you can get from data like CoStar, is rent growth, right? We want to have at least 2 to 3% year over year if we can, and we can find it. Rent growth projections or higher. So if you find a market that, I'd probably say 3% is where we're looking for. If we can't get at least that, then it's going to be hard. And you can look at the prior history, but also look at the forward projections. And a lot of those softwares like CoStar and Axiomatrix and Yardi Matrix can give you that data. And even if you don't subscribe to that data, a lot of times you can get some of that information from the property management companies that you're working with, or maybe even the real estate brokers that you're working with as well. Now, the other reports, I want to dive into a little bit more about the reports here. So review the one slide that was on there. I'm going to go back to it in a minute, but I want to talk about these multifamily market reports. So there's several different brokers as well as softwares that actually do this. Number one is CBRE, Marcus and Millichap, Cushman and Wakefield. All of those brokers put out usually a quarterly market report. And if your market is not getting one of those reports or is actually on one of those reports, you might want to second guess whether you want to invest there or not, depending on what your strategy is for investing. For us, we bring on investors to invest alongside us on every single one of our projects. And so we're always thinking about our investors and whether or not our investors would be interested in investing in a particular market. And if it's somewhere, in the middle of nowhere that no one's ever heard of, it's going to be a little bit of a harder time for you to be able to raise capital for that particular asset. And of course, like we mentioned before, CoStar and Yardi Matrix have their own reports. You can Google those. So whatever city you're looking for, you can type in, Greenville, South Carolina, Yardi Matrix report or CoStar report. Again, you can get some of those reports also from the brokers as well as the property management companies. But CBRE, Marcus and Millichap, Cushman and Wakefield, you can register for on their websites, and they'll give you access usually to those reports. If not, you can actually reach out to those brokers and say, hey, would you give me the report that you guys did recently on that particular market? And that way you have that data to be able to go off of. So obviously you can use Google to be able to pull up some of those reports. I'll give you some of that data. It's a little bit limited right now. And then, of course, reaching out to brokers, they can also provide you with that as well. All right. So one of the things we talked about this earlier, but you want to make sure that you drive the data all the way down to and analyze that data all the way down into the sub-market level. Okay, so don't just think that because, say, Atlanta, Georgia is a phenomenal market, that one sub-market in the in the southeastern quadrant that might not be so good is going to have the same demographics and same phenomenal numbers as the entire from the entire piece of the So sorry, I had somebody just walk into my office that distracted me there. So sorry about that. You want to make sure that you're looking at that particular submarket very closely, and softwares like CoStar will allow you to put a pinpoint at the address or the asset where that asset is located, and they will be able to open. You can actually do a 3-mile radius around your asset and see what are the market dynamics around that particular address, instead of just choosing a zip code, which you might be on the edge of the zip code, and so it doesn't really apply to you very well that way either. So you want to make sure that you dive very closely down to that. We talked about this as well, checking for crime statistics in the market. You can use things like city data, that neighborhood scout crime, Trulia, Statista, local property management companies as well. One of the things that you should also do, which looking at data is great, right? But until you actually get boots on the ground on that market, you're not going to be able to get the full picture of that market. Because again, picking these markets is not just about looking at numbers and data on a spreadsheet. You have to also go to see the property, go see the market, kind of see exactly where things are located, how things are laid out. Because even though the data might say one thing, you might be go to that particular market and kind of think a little bit differently. And for us, we want to make sure we feel good about the assets that we buy. We want to make sure that we can feel good about the markets that we invest in and really get behind them. And so you want to make sure that you actually go drive and tour that area, and not just at one time a day. You want to choose that area and go to that market in that area on multiple times throughout the day. In the morning, when people are going to work, what's the traffic like? Around the middle of the day, maybe when children are coming home, kind of seeing what's happening there. And then towards the end of the day, and where the traffic flow is going. And then, of course, at night, go show up at midnight and see what's happening in that market and around that property to kind of see, is that something you want to be a part of as well. And then other things that you want to look for in a particular market is our current rents under market? And can you acquire an asset and just go ahead and immediately raise the rents? And so when you're looking at those markets, you want to see where those rents are and other assets in that market that are underperforming, that maybe you can go in and actually take it and improve the operational efficiencies, whether you want to implement technology or whatever the case may be. And then also looking for some of those interior and exterior renovations that we're all looking for in these value add opportunities. So I'm going to go back to that slide that I told you that I skipped, and cover this real quick. So you also want to make sure that you are picking a market that you can sell later. And this is a really key point here, because I talked to a lot of investors that are trying to become active in the space, and they get really excited because they find this deal, but it's like in the middle of nowhere, and they think that they're going to get in, renovate it, and exit it in 3 to 5 years and pull this nice profit. And for me, I have a hard time believing that, because a lot of times those assets that they get a quote unquote good deal on, those assets are usually assets that have been sitting on the market for a long time. And so when you buy an asset that's been sitting on the market for a long time, guess what? Your property, when you sell, it's going to sit on the market for a long time, and you're probably going to have to sell it for a deal for the next person to actually acquire it and buy it. And so you always want to be thinking about that exit in mind, and always knowing, before you buy an asset, who is going to buy it on the back end, and how easy is it going to be able to sell it on the back end. But again, if you're one of those types of people that doesn't care about that, you just want to buy it and hold it for the rest of your life, then sure, that's totally different strategy. And I don't want to get in the way of you doing that. But I also want, and as a value-add investor myself, I want to make sure we're buying in markets that are really good and solid markets, which is why I don't mind buying at a 5 cap, because if I'm buying at an 8 cap and I spend my time, energy, and effort building up that NOI by $100,000, if I exit in an 8 cap market with a $100,000 increase on the NOI, I've only increased the value of that property by $1.25 million. Whereas if I do that same time, I spend that same time and energy and effort in a 5 cap market, I've increased the value of that $100,000 bump on NOI by $2 million. And some of you might argue, well, yes, but if you enter at a 5, you probably won't be able to exit until you're like at a 6. But then I would say, yes, but I'm still ahead of you, because even if I exit at a 6, I'm still at 1.725 million versus your 1.25 million. And if I exit at, if mine goes from a 5 to a 6 and a really good, strong, solid market, your 8 is probably going to go to a 9, 10, or possibly an 11, and now you're below $1 million in actual increase in value. So always, always, always be thinking about that exit strategy in mind. So I told you that I had a virtual assistant help me, who's been helping me with multiple projects over the last, I don't know, I think he's been with me for about a year now. But his name is Kevin, and you can reach out to him here. You can take your phone right now on the screen and just whatever iPhone you have, just take a picture of this QR code here. I'll leave it up on the screen, and whether you're watching the recording or whether you're on the live version now, once you actually have a deal that you're ready to present to investors, what I do is I put together a skeleton version of my offering memorandum and put in some pieces in there from the broker's OM, and then I send it over to Kevin, and he does his little magic and makes me look really good. And he's really good at doing that. So you can reach out to him. That's his email. That's the QR code to bring it to reach out to him. But whether you're doing a presentation in front of a bunch of people or you're doing the offering memorandums, he is really good at being able to do that. So please reach out to him and show him some love, and let him do your next project if you would there. And so that's it. That's it for today. I want to open up for some questions and answers for you. We have about 9 more minutes left to be able to do this. So if you have some questions, I want you to go ahead and type them into the chat box there or into the Q&A deck there. And I want to help and answer as many of these questions as possible for you with the remaining time that we have. So I have one that is coming in right now. Looks like Jim said, great comment regarding the cap rates and the value add computations. Yes, I truly believe in those cap rates. I love the cap rate because of that. I had somebody in church this past week try to debate me on why he thinks that that single family is actually better than multifamily. And I said, let's go. I'll talk to you right now about it, And he said that it would be easier to sell a single family asset than it would a multifamily asset. And I would agree with him that if I was buying in a tertiary or quaternary market, it probably would be harder to actually sell a multifamily asset. But we're not selling multifamily assets in these types of markets. We're buying them in good, solid markets where there's going to be tons and tons of people bidding on these projects. I mean, the projects that we're bidding on, there's a lot of competition. There's 30, 40, 50 people that are bidding on these assets. And that's the kind of competition that I want to have when we sell our asset, when we get ready to finish, when we actually finish our value add play for it. So, let's see. How do you typically source deals? So that's a great question. We actually did a webinar on this, I think a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months ago, but just in real short, what we typically do is source them through brokers, as well as using data analytics from different sources like CoStar and Axiomatrix and various things like that. But I would definitely, I'm highly right now, and when I go to sell my assets, I'm not going to sell them off market because I want the competition of the 30, 40, 50 people bidding up my property. And so we're looking for assets that we can have that same exit strategy in mind as well. All right, Jim has a question here. Do you think you should show a higher cap rate for selling purposes? Yes, I do. So, and what Jim's trying to say there is that if you buy at a 5 cap, do you want to exit at a 5 cap as well? And I would say, yes, I do want to exit at a 5 cap. But when we're doing our underwriting and doing our projections, we're not trying to enter and exit at the same cap rate. We always want to make sure we have some room for error and some cushion in there. And so we always project that we're going to be in a softer market. And so that there will be some expansion in that cap rate on our conservative underwriting, which would be the usually about 10 basis point spread at a minimum for every year that we're actually projecting. So on a 5-year hold horizon, we're projecting that we're going to have at least a 50 basis point spread on the entry and the exit cap rate. So if we enter at a 5 cap, we're going to make sure that on our underwriting, we're showing that we're going to exit on in a 5.5 cap. All right, let's see. So Pradeep, it says, question, during a recession, cap rate compress or expand? So during a recession, what happens is the actual value of your asset will plummet. It'll go down. But I don't really care about that, because one of the things that you can look at in 2008 is, yes, the property values plummeted, but what stayed very steady was the actual income that was generated off that property. So yes, there was some expansion in the cap rates during a recession, and that's what caused the values of those properties to plummet. But I'm not going to sell during that time. So I'm not really concerned about what the actual cap rate does during a recession, because I'm not going to sell it anyway. I'm going to hold on to it until we get to the other side of a recession. And that's why we always make sure we have plenty of cushion in there with operating reserves and things like that, and make sure we're not over leveraged as well. So good question there, Pradeep. Chandra is asking, what kind of asset class are you buying? I thought C was always good. So our philosophy is that we want to buy B-class assets. Now, if I find a C-class asset that's in a B area, then that's great. That's what we'll buy. We do like to do that as well. But if we have a C-class asset in a C-class market, our group is not buying that. So we buy B-class assets, and our sweet spot is really a B-class asset in an A-class area. And the reason why is because when the market shifts and turns, when there's some sort of correction or another recession, what's going to happen is the people who want to stay in those A-class areas but don't want to pay the A-class prices, you have this nice quality B-class asset in that market, and they will come flock to you. And then the people who are actually in a B-class asset, they don't want to live next to people who are actually in a C-class asset or in a C-class market. So they'll do what they need to do, get a second job, work as hard as they can to actually, make sure that they can stay in that B-class asset. So good question there as well. Yvonne's asking, what was the name of the data source? CoStar, CoStar. You can just go Google CoStar and you can find a lot of information about that. You can also reach out to your brokers, or even your lenders have access to this information. Just ask them if you can get the CoStar report for a particular market, and a lot of times they can help you with that. All right. So what is your advice for someone wanting to get started in multifamily investing, buy and hold for rental? So my suggestion would be to just go to passiveinvesting.com and invest with us instead. No, I'm just kidding. You could certainly do that if you wanted to. That'd be the easy button to push. But I was just totally teasing there. So one of the things that you should do is become educated. So when I first got into this space, I dove and got into every single book that you can imagine around multifamily. I've been to all the different events and courses and stuff like that. And then the number one thing I would suggest you do is hire a mentor. And if you want me to help you find someone that might be able to fit you and what your goals are, shoot me an email, dan@multifamilyinvestornation.com. I'd love to be able to help you out. I don't do I do not do any coaching or mentoring myself. I don't have the time for it. And so I do recommend other people. So if you want to shoot me an email, I can definitely help you out for that as well. And then let's see here. Will a growing area with increasing population growth generally have multi-unit properties with a higher or lower cap rate? So when there is a better or more solid market, typically you're going to see a lower cap rate. And so that's because it's a better asset to purchase. And so you're going to see that lower cap rate. And the cap rates are obviously dependent upon the asset class, and also the asset, the area, the class of the area that it's in as well, and the potential of that property, and what kind of deferred maintenance is on the property. So a lot of those multifamily market reports that I was mentioning to you, like the CoStar and the Yardi Matrix and City Data and stuff like that, they have information in there based on the cap rate, based on the class of the property, and the cap rate. So I would definitely suggest that you do that as well. It says, Ganesh is asking, do you target a particular size of multifamily units? So earlier on this year, our minimum for our group and target was 100, minimum 100 units and minimum 10 million. And about a month and a half ago, we shifted and pivoted to a different one. So we're now minimum 20 million and minimum 200 units. We kind of shifted as our group has continued to actually grow. All right. So do you prefer 9, 10, 8, or 7 cap? I prefer to buy an asset that is in a good, solid market that, I'm fine buying in a 5 or 6 cap. Matter of fact, I'd prefer to buy in a 5, 6, or 7 cap market versus a higher cap market, because I know that because of the solid market that it's in, it's driving that cap rate down, and it's going to help me when I go to actually sell that asset. So, all right, I got one more question here that I'm going to wrap it up with. So right here with 1 minute left. Yes, there will be a recording. And then somebody asked, is there a couple of books or courses that you like? So yes, there is. And the best thing for you to do is send me an email and give me a little bit of a background about who you are and your story. And I can help and guide you and direct you on what your goals are. Like, what are your goals? How much are you looking to invest? And, how much do you have to invest? Or if you're using other people's money, or, whatever that process is. And I can recommend various mentors or books that can help you along your process. So just shoot me an email, dan@multifamilyinvestornation.com. Would love to be able to help you out. Thank you guys so much for participating here. Next week we'll be having another topic that I'll be releasing soon. But next month in our meetups that we're having, so we do the first Monday of every month across the country. You can go to the multifamilyinvestornation.com website, and there's a red and white a meetup icon on that page. If you click on that, there'll be a map of the United States and where all of our 53 meetups are meeting across the country. If you want to be one of our co-organizers, please email Stacy, Stacey, at multifamilyinvestornation.com. She'd love to be able to get you linked into our network of meetups across the country. But if you'd like to just join us as an attendee, please do that as well. Looking to be able to grow that. And our next topic for September, and I believe that, not September, for August, which will be October. The October 7th, 2019 topic is going to be raising capital for multifamily deals. So if you're interested in raising capital for multifamily deals, make sure that you attend the meetup coming up in October 7th. So we typically meet the first Monday of every month. So that is going to be called Raising Capital for Your Multifamily Deals. And make sure that you go to the multifamilyinvestornationpage.com, multifamilyinvestornation.com page to do that. And look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you so much.